Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today is a solo episode, and I have a topic I want to dive into, and that is 7 reasons why increasing calories didn't work for you. But first, before I go into that, I just want to go over a few ways you can help support the podcast. So first, if you found this podcast to be helpful in any way, if you could leave a rating and review, and that will help more people find this podcast. Dale's in the background here getting into something. But yes, a rating and review will help more people find this podcast. So again, I appreciate everybody who listens to this podcast. Next, if you haven't yet, make sure you download my free masterclass on body recomp, what it is, how to do it. The link to that is in the show notes. And I also have my free webinar on nutrition period, free masterclass on nutrition periodization. I go over each phase, how to do it, adjustments, mistakes, how to set it up and whatnot. And again, that link to that is in the show notes as well too there. Next, if you haven't yet, give me a follow on Jeff, and that's where I'm most active on social media. I'm just a DM away if you ever have any questions for me on anything there with that. So with that out of the way, let's dive into today's topic. So I want to chat with you about 7 reasons why increasing calories didn't work for you. So I'm sure at some point, maybe you try to increase your calories to either build more muscle, maybe to take a break from fat loss, or maybe to break, or maybe you heard that, hey, you needed to increase your calories to break through a fat loss plateau. And I think the good news here is that a lot of people are realizing that always trying to diet for weight loss or fat loss isn't a great idea. Maybe you're new to my podcast, or maybe you've listened for a while, but I'm not a fan of just having people fat loss diet 24/7, right? We need to make sure we take that break. However, with this, the problem with increasing calories is that many people either go at increasing calories in the wrong way, they didn't actually need to, or they have poor expectations of what the process is. In today's episode, I'm going to go over reasons you would increase your calories, common issues when increasing your calories, and what went wrong. There's that. So again, if you have any questions on this, you can always just reach out to me on Instagram, Jeff, there with that. All right. So first I want to start with what would be some potential reasons to increase calories, right? Because a lot of times when somebody wants to get in better shape, it's, oh, you got to just decrease your calories. You got to eat less. But again, that's not necessarily always the case. So the first reason would be one, fat loss plateaued and you need to get back to your maintenance calories. So you've been fat loss dieting for an extended period of time. Things started to slow down. You're maybe super, like you lost a good amount of weight. You're super hungry. Okay. So maybe you need to go back to maintenance at this point, right? Okay, I lost the body fat I need to start to feel a little bit better. All right, now I'm going to go back to my maintenance calories and maintain this weight loss, right? So that would be one reason there that you would want to increase your calories. Number two, maybe your fat loss plateaued and you want to add more muscle now. It's, hey, I dropped some body fat. I actually didn't have as much muscle as I thought. All right, now I need to increase my calories to build more muscle. I know that eating low calories, being in a large energy deficit, it's not going to be great for building muscle. So I need to increase my calories again, maybe to maintenance or maybe into a slight surplus, depending on where you're at. So that would be another reason you'd want to increase your calories. Maybe you just decided to end your fat loss phase. Hey, I was going to do this for 8 weeks, end it, and now I want to add some muscle. Again, that would warrant you to increase your calories again to maintenance or to a small surplus. From there, again, fat loss phase ended, and you need to get back to maintenance. Again, you had to schedule into the fat loss phase, you're done, you completed it, and now it's, hey, where do I go from here? That would be a time that you would want to slowly increase your calories back, or just go back to maintenance right away. You don't necessarily need to slowly increase them. But again, another reason you would want to increase your calories. Next reason would be you want to maximize muscle growth and are fairly lean. So we know that when you are relatively lean, if you try to stay in a small deficit or at maintenance, it's probably not going to be the greatest spot for you to build more muscle. So you need to make sure that you get into a small surplus, at least maybe high into maintenance, to help build more muscle. Again, that's going to require you to probably increase your calories a little bit here. Next reason would be you want to maximize muscle growth and have a good amount of muscle already and want to add more. So again, you're somebody that relatively good body composition, you have a good amount of muscle already. You've had good training protocols for an extended period of time, but you want to continue to add more. That would be a case where you would probably need to increase your calories for at least a short period of time. Next would be you want to build more muscle, but you aren't eating enough. So again, this kind of goes back to maybe you have been fat loss dieting for a while. You got used to that caloric amount. You've stayed there, maintained that absolute low weight, but now it's, hey, I need to add some muscle. Again, in that case, you're probably not eating enough. You need to eat a little bit more to build more muscle, which would require an increase in calories. The next reason you'd want to increase your calories would be weight is trending down or staying the same, but you don't want it to. So again, maybe you set out to be in a small surplus or maintenance, but your weight is continuing to trend down. That's the case. In that case, you need to increase your calories at least a little bit to put you in that best position to build muscle. Or again, you're somebody that has a lot of muscle, you're fairly lean, but now your weight's not trending up, it's staying the same. Again, a sign that you probably need to increase your calories there with that. So those would be the main reasons you want to increase your calories. Again, it all stems from extended periods of time fat loss dieting. Now it's time to go back to maintenance or into a small surplus. Again, require you increasing your calories. Maybe you're super lean, you want to build more muscle. Again, you likely need to increase your calories from where they're at currently. Or again, your weight's trending down or staying the same and you want it to go up again. That would warrant you to increase your calories. There with that. All kind of stem from the same thing, just a few different scenarios, like just going a layer deeper with it all. Some typical issues when increasing calories. So here's some issues I see when people increase their calories. Problems I've heard people say from increasing their calories. They gain too much body fat increasing calories. They got done with the fat loss phase, increased their calories, and then they ended up just gaining way too much weight. They just weren't happy with where they ended up. Again, typically from maybe we'll dive into the reasons why this happens. But again, you end up increasing your calories and now you feel like you gained too much body weight now, or gain too much fat in the process. Now, sometimes it comes down to expectations, but also a lot of times I do see the mistakes I'm about to go over people make, and that's why they end up gaining more body fat than they would want in this process. You increase calories for a bit to break through a fat loss plateau, and then went back to fat loss, but nothing happened, right? So it's okay, if you want to break through this fat loss plateau, you need to increase your calories, because when you get back, it's going to make fat loss easier in the future. But then you go back to fat loss and nothing really happened. And then 3, didn't add much muscle by increasing calories. So you increase calories, but then with the goal of building more muscle, but then you actually didn't build as much muscle as you wanted in the process. So those would be like the 3 issues and problems I see when increasing calories. So let's dive into the 7 reasons why. They're all going to tie into what I just talked about there with that. Okay, so number 1 is you were eating more calories than you thought during your fat loss phase. So your fat loss was plateaued, so you thought you needed a reverse diet to break through, right? So again, you're sitting there, you're like, man, I don't know what's going on. I'm tracking my calories. I'm just not dropping the weight that I want. I heard, hey, if I'm plateaued, I need to increase my calories, and then that's going to help me break through my fat loss plateau. However, what I typically see happen here is you were just eating more calories than you thought during your fat loss phase. Because of this, improving adherence to the plan was an issue, not that you weren't eating enough. So again, people will be like, oh, I'm plateaued, but then they're underreporting on accident. Maybe they're underreporting on purpose. Their tracking skill is not very good. So they think they're eating, say, 1,500 calories, but really, if you were to actually look at it, they're closer to 2,000. So it's like, yeah, if you increase your calories from that, now that's not going to work, right? Your problem wasn't necessarily that like your body plateaued from a fat loss perspective and you needed to eat more calories. It was just that you were eating more calories than you thought you were. And this happens more than people think. And again, it's not, oh, hey, you're doing this on purpose. It's typically from just a lack of tracking skill, lack of awareness, and also the fact that what they say how many calories are in something can be off by up to 25%. Okay, so we also have that. And then when you go out to eat, you really don't, even though it says it has a certain amount of calories, it can be way off depending on the chef that is there that day, the cook that's there that day, the serving size they give you that day. So there's a lot of things that can go into this that can make it off. Or again, another issue would be, hey, maybe you put your numbers into a calorie calculator and that number just isn't right for you, and you did need to decrease your calories. So this thing where it's like, oh, I'm just not losing weight because I'm not eating enough. Again, that isn't 9.9 times out of 10, that is not the reason why that's not happening. It's you're accidentally eating more calories than you think. Again, whether that be all the things I just mentioned, or another scenario here is you're staying on track 4 or 5 days out of the week, and then you have 2 to 3 days that are untracked. And again, you don't feel like you eat a lot, but you make some choices that are very calorie dense, and you don't feel like you're eating a lot of food, but you end up getting way more calories. So again, the problem here is if you're using this to, oh, hey, I'm just not dropping weight like I want, I need to reverse diet. Again, chances are you're probably your tracking is off, you're underreporting, you need to improve your adherence. The next big issue that I see when increasing calories is you just winged it when you increased your calories. You're out of a fat loss phase, so you had no structure with nutrition and relaxed a little too much with food. And because of this, you ate more calories than you needed to, equals more body fat gain. This is a big problem too. I increased my calories and it didn't work. And then you look and it's you tracked everything in a fat loss phase. You were monitoring everything in a fat loss phase. And then you got out of the fat loss phase and now you're just winging everything. You didn't have a plan with nutrition. You had no structure. Of course, coming out of a lower calorie amount, you're a little bit more hungrier. You're a little bit leaner. If you just wing it, you're going to end up eating more calories than you want, which you're going to gain weight a little bit quicker, which is going to lead to a little bit more fat gain than you would want, right? So again, this is where increasing your calories, why it didn't work for you. You just winged it. Number 3, you weren't lifting in the process, or you didn't push training. So anytime you do increase calories, weight training in the process is a must. Like you need to make sure you do that, because if we're just increasing calories and we're not weight training in that process, you're really just telling your body to, like, it's going to, any weight you gain, it's going to put more towards body fat than muscle, right? Like you need to send that signal to build muscle, and that helps your body kind of shuttle those nutrients and extra calories to where it needs to go to help build muscle, right? Versus if you're not sending that signal, those extra calories that you're eating are just going to get stored as energy, right? As future energy via fat. So again, if you didn't push training or stopped altogether, you missed out on muscle growth and you added a little bit more body fat. But there's also the other half of this. Okay, so your weight training, that's good, but you also need to make sure you're pushing your weight training. Like, yes, just getting in there and lifting weights, like that is going to do something that's going to be better than not doing anything. However, to take it to that next level, especially if you increased your calories and it didn't work, you need to make sure that you push your training in that process as well too. That's a big mistake I see people make is one, not training at all, but then two, they also aren't pushing their training. Number four, you ate too many calories / your calorie numbers were off. So again, just like I mentioned on the way down, when people are tracking for fat loss, their numbers could be off. Same thing can happen on the way up. So maybe your tracking was off, or you had more calories on the weekend than you thought when increasing calories, which equals more fat gain than you wanted. So again, this could be something same thing in a fat loss phase. You track 5 days out of the week, then you have 2 days that are untracked. And then maybe you're like, hey, I am eating more calories. I'm not in a fat loss phase. I can just eat anything and everything. Then you end up eating way more calories than you think. And now you're in a larger surplus than you would like to be over weeks or over the week, right? Because again, that's ultimately where tissue gain is going to happen is over weeks or over extended periods of time, not just in one day. So again, the same thing can happen there. You can just be eating more calories than you actually think you are. And again, this could be like, okay, maybe you're trying to set out for maintenance and now you're in a surplus. So now you're gaining weight because of it. Or maybe you set out for a small surplus and now you're in a larger surplus. Both of those are going to lead to a little bit more weight gain, fat gain than you wanted in the process. Or maybe the issue is that the calorie numbers you set were just too high and you didn't make an adjustment. So again, it's probably an adherence thing mostly. But yeah, your calorie numbers being too high and you didn't make that adjustment. Just like on the way down, you can maybe your numbers could be too high and it's not a calorie deficit for you because you went off the calorie calculator. Same thing here. Your numbers could be a little too high that you set, and maybe your body just doesn't respond as well as you thought it would to a small surplus, or maybe you overshot your maintenance numbers and you didn't make an adjustment, right? You're like, oh, hey, this is what it should be. So I'm going to stick here, not taking any look at like where your scale weight's trending, your biofeedback. And because of that, you end up gaining more body fat than you want in that process. Number 5, and this is around expectations. Sorry, he is on one this morning. So yeah, number 5, maybe this one is more around expectations, right? So you expect it to get leaner and you expect it maybe to not gain any weight whatsoever, right? You hear maintenance and you're like, oh, hey, I'm going to come out of my fat loss phase and I'm going to be the exact same weight that I was when I started this, right? And again, that's usually not reasonable, right? There's a myth that increasing calories can get you leaner or not cause any amount of weight gain. So again, you need to look at your expectations of the process. Can you limit fat gain and increase muscle growth? Yes, but expecting to get leaner and not see your scale come up at all is unreasonable in most cases, right? This kind of goes back to a little bit more around expectations. Yeah, we need to look at our expectations here because again, you might see a little bit of weight gain, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because we can limit fat gain, but if you're just trying to think that you're going to get leaner by increasing your calories, or you're not going to gain absolutely any weight whatsoever and you're going to maintain your lowest body weight, again, that comes back to a little bit of an expectation on there. So again, for you, it didn't work because you thought you were going to get leaner and or your weight was going to stay the exact same. But again, that's just a expectation thing there that needs to be worked on there. So it's not that it didn't work. It's just that your expectations were off. Number 6, your diet quality went down the drain. In a fat loss phase, you had a good base of nutrient dense foods. But then when you increased calories, you started to eat more tasty food and less nutrient dense food. So because of that, you can crave more of that food. It's easier to eat more calories. You feel like you're not eating as much food, but you're getting more calories. And so you end up being in a little bit of a larger surplus than you want to be. And so because of that, increasing calories didn't work for you. And it comes back to the fact that you probably thought you were eating a certain amount of calories, but you're eating more than you thought. And again, it's because your diet quality went down the drain and it ended up being more tasty food and more calorie dense type foods. Again, this is a common mistake I see people make. They're in a fat loss phase. They're eating all quote unquote fat loss foods. They get out of it, boom, all gone. Again, we want to add in some tasty food, but we need to make sure we have a good balance and we still get a good base of nutrient dense foods. This kind of comes back to you just winging it in this period of time. Again, we want you to have some tasty food in there. You shouldn't always have quote unquote diet foods all year round. But again, you need to make sure you're managing your flexibility there with that. So make sure you still get a good amount of nutrient dense foods in there. But again, it comes back to eating more calories than you think. Number 7, you didn't do it for long enough. Maybe you were at a fat loss plateau or you needed to gain weight for muscle, but after 6 weeks, you had an urge to cut again. So you went back to a deficit, not giving yourself enough time to really notice any change in that process. So again, make sure you really stick to it. If you do these things here and don't make the mistakes I talked about, you can really milk this out for an extended period of time. And that's where you really see change in your physique and body composition by sticking to this for longer periods of time. Again, if you go 6 weeks in and it's, oh man, I just got to lose weight again. I've gained 2 pounds in this process. I just can't handle it mentally. So you're going to end up being in this really tough spot it's going to be really hard for you to change your physique long term if that's your thoughts around it, right? So you need to stick it out. You do need to stick it out for an extended period of time here. So those are the 7 reasons. I would say one thing to potentially add is you may feel like because you're not necessarily your absolute leanest during this period of time, you may feel like you're not making any progress whatsoever. But again, see it through and do these things I talked about, either stay around maintenance or see that really slow weight gain while lifting weights. And if you stick to it, you do these things that I talked about here, it will be something that will be beneficial and will help improve your physique over and body composition over the long term. But again, we need to make sure we're doing these things that I talked about in this episode today. So hopefully this gave you an idea as to why maybe you increased your calories in the past and it didn't work for you. So next time you do, you can make that adjustment and make sure that you set yourself up for success here. If you have more questions on how to set up a building phase, how to set it up for you, how to make adjustments, what your training should be, then I have my free 30-minute strategy call just for this. We can talk about a game plan for you over the next couple months and what that may look like. So if you're interested in that, the link to that is in the show notes. And again, if you have any questions, I'm always just a DM away and you can reach out to me on Instagram. So that's it for this episode. Let me know if you have any questions on it. I will talk to you next time.